Clara first realized the depth of her loneliness not in the quiet nights of her small apartment or even in the moments when she returned home after work to an echo of silence, but in the middle of a crowded grocery store one chilly November evening, when she reached for a jar of soup and the sudden thought gripped her like ice: if I collapsed right here, would anyone even know who to call? The question stopped her in her tracks while laughter and chatter swirled around, while couples debated between cereals, friends argued playfully over coffee, and parents shushed their restless children, and she stood invisible, a shadow among lives brimming with connection. It hadn't always been like this. Once Clara had family, a mother whose laughter filled the kitchen like sunlight, a father who sang off-key while flipping pancakes, a younger brother, Michael, who followed her everywhere, but time stole it all. Her parents passed within a few years of each other. Michael moved across the country into a life too busy for calls, and the fiancé who had promised forever, Aaron, slipped away when her grief hollowed her out, leaving nothing but a note on the counter: I can't do this anymore. From then on Clara's life shrank to the quiet halls of a library where she worked, stamping books, offering polite smiles, fading into the background of other people's stories, filling her evenings with silence and convincing herself this was all she deserved. Then came Daniel, a man who walked in every Tuesday in the same worn navy coat, hair tousled as though his hands had passed through it too many times, eyes kind but heavy with something unspoken. He borrowed history and memoirs and poetry, always returned books carefully as though they were sacred, and always looked her in the eye when thanking her, as if her simple act of handing over a book mattered. At first he was just another face, but slowly she noticed how he lingered, as though reluctant to return to whatever waited outside, and one rainy morning as she shelved books, he asked in a low, hesitant voice, "Do you ever feel like the world is moving on without you?" And though his question startled her, she answered honestly, for the first time in years not hiding behind politeness, "Every single day." That was the moment everything shifted. They began talking more, first about books and authors, then about life. She learned he had once been a carpenter, building homes with his hands, until an accident ended that work, and not long after he lost his wife, Anna, to illness. They had no children, and grief had left him wandering through days, finding solace only in the quiet company of books. "I come here," he admitted, tracing a finger over the spine of a novel, "because books remind me there's still beauty, even when everything else feels broken." His pain echoed hers, and for the first time Clara felt her silence understood, her loneliness mirrored in another. They shared coffee after her shifts, walked through autumn parks where leaves crunched beneath their shoes, and sometimes sat together in wordless companionship, Daniel never rushing her silences, never trying to erase her pain but honoring it as though silence itself was a story. Yet Clara resisted, fully trusting. The voice inside her whispered, "People leave, they always leave." That winter, life tested her fear. Her apartment's old heater failed during a brutal cold snap, and when the flu struck, it left her trembling and feverish, drifting in and out of delirium, phone silent, no one checking in. She forgot even to lock her door, and when she failed to appear at the library on their usual Tuesday, Daniel grew worried. After knocking without response, he entered and found her pale, shaking under blankets. Without hesitation he stayed, 3 days and nights. Cooking soup from whatever he found in her kitchen, placing cool cloths on her forehead, coaxing her to drink water, sitting awake through her restless dreams. Ashamed, she whispered hoarsely, "Why are you doing this for me?" And his answer, spoken softly but with unshakable conviction, broke through every wall around her heart, "Because I know what it feels like to be forgotten. And I promised myself, if I ever had the chance, I'd give someone else what I once prayed for, my whole life, if they needed it." Tears slipped down her cheeks as something inside her broke and healed all at once, and when the fever finally released her, she woke to find him asleep in a chair beside her bed, still there, still keeping watch. From that winter onward, life changed, not through grand gestures, but through small, steadfast acts. Daniel repaired her leaky faucet and squeaky doors, brought warmth back not just to her apartment but to her days. Clara, in turn, gave him laughter again, gentle mornings over tea, the quiet companionship of someone who truly saw him. They were not saviors, just two human beings scarred but still willing to love, and in showing up for each other, they stitched together a wholeness they had both thought lost. Years passed, and one golden afternoon they sat side by side in that same library, sunlight streaming through tall windows, their hands entwined. Clara looked at him, tears shining, and whispered, "You gave me your whole life," to which Daniel smiled, eyes crinkling with warmth, and replied, "No, we gave each other ours." And in that simple truth lay the miracle, not that someone had rescued her, but that in their shared brokenness they had discovered a love strong enough to banish loneliness forever. Clara was never truly alone again, Daniel was never forgotten again, and together they proved that even in the coldest winters of the soul, the warmth of human kindness can rebuild what is lost. Sometimes salvation comes not in grand declarations but in the quiet, radical act of giving your whole life to another, not in pieces, not temporarily, but fully, unconditionally, and in that offering, two hearts can become whole again.